Hello everyone, and today we are taking a look at the Dream Machine. Now, we've never actually shown the actual hardware, so this is the hardware in its original form. The reason why we're doing this is because we are going to be upgrading it soon. So this is the last look at the Dream Machine's hardware. It has an Intel Core i5 3330 at 3 gigahertz. The RAM there is Corsair Value RAM. The SSD, as you're looking at, I added to it. It has a 2 terabyte, what was it? Seagate Barracuda is what it had in there. The graphics card is a Sapphire HD 7770, and there's a look at the front of it. So let's go and run some benchmarks of games that were available at the time. This is 2012 at launch, so we're looking at 2012, 2013 games. So this is Bioshock Infinite's benchmark, running at the DirectX 11 Ultra setting, and the results are pretty decent actually. It averages 37 FPS. Where we've got the cursor is where you want to look. Average FPS is 37.59 with a minimum of 20 and a maximum of 171. I would ignore that maximum. 20 is a bit concerning, but we're going to take a look at it in game now. So this is it in game, and we're going to take a look. We're going to be running the Ultra preset. We'll just find and show you the options and show you what graphic settings that we are using. Just using presets, really. We're not going to go into customization. We're just using quality level Ultra 1080p. And you can see here the frame rate sticks between 30 and 40 FPS. The average FPS in game, I'd say, is about 35. There are times when it can get above 40, but we're going to show you this sequence. There's a lot of effects, and there's a nice sort of action sequence here where we go around and we shoot a few dudes. And we use a few, what are they called? Vigors, not plasmas. I nearly said plasmids there, so we'll use a few vigors, we'll shoot a few dudes. This area I thought was kind of nice because there's a lot of, the sort of cloud effects there, the fog effects that it's got. We're going to shoot a bunch of fools, no need for stealth or sneaking around. We'll possess that dude and then shoot him for some reason. But yeah, the frame rate is reasonable, I would say. You can definitely get 1080p, 30 FPS, and ultra settings would not be an issue. I think 30 FPS really is the limit of what this card will do. It is only a 1 gigabyte of VRAM. We've got 8 gigabytes of system RAM, in case you're wondering. It's at 1333 megahertz. There's a little bit of a micro stutter there as a transition to the scene, but the frame rate holds up pretty nicely. There you go. We did a big explosion effect there. Shot that guy who was already dead. Just being cruel to him. But yeah, between 30 and 40, what I would do is just set the frame rate in Reba Tuner Statistics server. Just set it to 30 FPS and you'll be fine in Bioshock Infinite. Bear in mind that this was way better than the Xbox 360 version of Bioshock Infinite, as that ran at around 720p and only ran at 30 FPS. So you're getting a higher resolution and better frame rate there. You see here, we're showing off a few effects. Dips down to 33 there. There was a bit of that electricity effect that was going off on the melee attack. What's this guy doing, son? Right, so we will move on to our next game, which is going to be Batman Arkham City. Not Batman Arkham Knight. We're not that stupid, really. We're not gonna do Batman Arkham Knight. So I'll show you the settings again. Arkham City came out in 2012. We're running with tessellation. DirectX 11 features are all enabled. The level of detail is extreme, and we're running a 1080p resolution. No VSync, obviously, because we want to test the frame rate. So when we move on to the benchmark here, you'll see the results from the benchmark. Pretty deceptive, I'm going to say here. 60 FPS, 59. So you're thinking, right, 60 FPS is possible. This is just letting the benchmark run. I won't show you the whole benchmark, but we'll show you the average. 57 FPS, not too bad. However, in-game is a totally different story. As you can see here, same settings. you're gonna have to drop those settings. A lot of those settings were NVIDIA specific, but yeah, we are getting dips below the 30 FPS. Sometimes it'll hang around the 30 FPS. Interestingly enough, when you get into the open world, it really does dip. I did do a bit. I don't have the footage of it, but I was gliding around when he puts his Batman outfit on, then he puts the bat suit on. Basically, it struggles to stay. It runs about 27, so I would turn it off extreme, but certainly you could get 1080p 30 FPS, at least on high settings. I would get rid of the DirectX 11 stuff though, and drop the settings a little bit to get it. But we'll move on to Tomb Raider, which was released in 2013. Again, we've looked for games around the time of its release. So Tomb Raider, we're going for a 1080p display. I don't know why it's set to 50 Hz. We're on a TV here, so we'll go for 60 Hz. Refresh, I don't know. It's got 24 Hz cinematic there. So you have a cinematic. You see HD 7770, no VSync. Quality, we're going to go with. We're going to go with. I think we'll go ultra, not ultimate. I think we'll just go ultra. Hair quality, we'll leave it normal. I will put tessellation off because it's quite demanding for that. So it's kind of a custom settings, mostly the ultra preset. You see you've got FXAA, anisotropic filtering at 16 times. Hair quality, we're not using Tress FX, and as you can see in the benchmark, it hangs around the 40 FPS mark. This is quite a good looking game. It's quite a technically demanding game as well. So we'll look at the average frame rate is 44 FPS, minimum of 36 and a max of 52, so that's good. So 1080p 30 FPS should be doable. So we'll show you some gameplay. At least with those settings, again, Tress FX is too much of a hog, and tessellation on an AMD GPU is, you know, I think we best just lose it, really. There you go. We'll do a bit of combat. We'll run around, jump around a bit as Lara Croft. So yeah, it's not too bad. It's hanging around the 40 frames per second. So we did try it in a lot of modern games, and it's a bit unfair to the card, I thought. But yes, it can do things like The Division on low settings at 1080p, and you can get 30 FPS. I'm trying to find out where this dude's whistling. I'm trying to find this dickhead here. But yeah, on games that were released around the time, it's what you'd expect from a sort of mid to low tier performance. There was a 2GB version of it, which is the version you should go for if you're ever going to buy it. There's these dudes. That dude's got a sword. I'm going to hit him with me ice. What's the ice thing? I can't remember what the ice thing's called. Ice pick, that's it. Shot him in the heart. Fucking messing with Lara Croft, son. You know who Lara Croft is. So we're moving on to Dishonored. Dishonored 1, not Dishonored 2. There's not a lot of options here. Basically, this is it. High is the highest you can get. Resolution's 1080p, VSync is off, obviously, and really that's it. So we'll head into in-game now. I should point out, we should have cut this out of this, really. Indoor areas, you're looking at a very smooth sort of 100 plus FPS it can hit. I don't think you can do 120 here. Although we're doing 130, no problem here. 120, 1080, 120 certainly is possible. It's not really that much of a demanding game. I thought we'd just have a run around. There's no enemies around here though. So yeah, you can get over 100 FPS. It does use, this one used the Unreal Engine 3. Didn't use the Void engine, which Dishonored 2, which famously is pretty bad. So we'll go outside and show you some of the gameplay that you can expect in the open world. Again, it does dip. You could easily get 1080p 60 though from this. There is a few little dips. I take it that's just from the loading. I think some things are still loading in, streaming in. But yeah, we're averaging around sort of 70 FPS here. It does get highs of around 90 there, so that's not bad. We're going to run about and kill a few things just to see if we can, you know, see if we can blip the frame rate here a little bit. We'll pull out this battery and go fight a few dudes here. Fight these dudes, cause a bit of chaos here. And yeah, the frame rate is quite nice actually. 1080 60, no real problems with that in Dishonored 2. Can't be bothered blocking. Blocking's for pussies, and don't know where that dude is. There he is. Oh, he missed. There you go. Blocked him. Cut his head off. There you go. Dipped a little bit there. That explosion did cause a little bit of a dip. But yeah, the Dream Machine, quite a capable little system. The i5 CPU is pretty good. I'm getting eaten by rats now. Don't have rat shadows in this one like they do in Dishonored 2. The rats don't have shadows, unfortunately. But yeah, you should be able to manage 1080p, 60 FPS. So the Dream Machine is a decent PC for the money. £200. It costs less than an Xbox One did at the time. Of course, you can get an Xbox One S now for under £200, but I still think the flexibility of a PC certainly is advantageous. Now, what are we going to do with the Dream Machine? We're going to upgrade it. That's why we're doing these videos. We'll do all of these benchmarks again. Just messing around here in Dishonored while we say this. So we're going to add a CPU cooler is going to get added because I don't really like the CPU temperatures that are there. So I'm going to add a aftermarket cooler for the CPU. Maybe add faster RAM because it's only got 1333 value, 1333 megahertz value RAM. And we're going to be adding a new GPU. Now I would have put the R9 390X in it, but we're going to need to buy a new power supply and nah, it's a budget PC. I don't think adding that. It would be interesting to see what it did, though, in that sort of i5 to see whether it would bottleneck it at 3 gigahertz, non-overclockable. But what we're going to do is we're going to add the R9 280X, or as I'm going to call it, an HD 7770, which is available for around £100 these days in the UK. So anyway, that is all for this video, so thank you for joining me, and we'll see you again soon, and goodbye. And I will test the R9 280X with these games.